A humble father is thrown out of his only daughter's wedding, accused by her of not helping or contributing to the ceremony preparations. But what she doesn't know is that Robert was a simple man, dedicated to life in the countryside and to the values he had learned since his youth. After the loss of his wife, Mary, to a cruel illness, he took on the responsibility of raising Jennifer, his only daughter, with whom he always tried to maintain a close relationship. However, the emotional distance between them grew as Jennifer matured, especially during her adolescence, when Robert struggled to fulfill the role of both father and mother, but couldn't always show his feelings. Determined to pursue her dreams, Jennifer left for the big city to study, which further distanced them, although Robert continued to support her unconditionally, even though he didn't fully understand her ambitions. It was during this new phase in Jennifer's life, while studying in the big city, that she met Anthony, a charismatic and caring young man. Initially, they were just friends, but over time, their closeness and shared interests turned their relationship into something deeper. Soon, Anthony became not only a constant support, but also her boyfriend. The couple built a solid relationship over the years, and Anthony, showing seriousness in his plans, proposed to Jennifer during a special dinner. She enthusiastically accepted and shared the news with Robert, who, although thrilled by his daughter's happiness, couldn't help but feel even more distant from the life she had built. Jennifer and Anthony were sitting on a bench in a park. They had chosen the spot to rest after weeks of intense work and study. Anthony held Jennifer's hand while she admired the birds flying among the trees. With a smile on his face, he began to talk about the future. "So, have you thought about how our wedding will be?" Anthony asked, looking at her with a hopeful expression. Jennifer laughed softly. "Oh, Anthony, I barely had time to think about it. But I always imagined something simple, you know? A beautiful place, just with the closest people." "Simple," Anthony said, raising his eyebrows. "Jennifer, you deserve something grand. Our union should be celebrated in style." Jennifer tilted her head, intrigued. "Do you really think so? I don't know. I always heard that the wedding is the bride's responsibility to organize everything. My mum always talked about that before. Well, you know." Anthony squeezed her hand reassuringly. "And that's why I want my mum to help. She has experience with events and mentioned that she would love to organize everything. I think she can make this day truly unforgettable for both of us." Jennifer hesitated for a moment. "I hadn't thought about that, but if she's so excited, I guess it could be good. I just want my dad to be involved too, you know? He always dreamed of seeing me get married. I want him to help with the costs too, so as not to burden your family." Anthony paused, as if calculating something in his mind, before smiling again. "Jennifer, I thought of something. What if you trust me and let everything be a big surprise? My mom will take care of all the details with great care, and I'll be involved too. You just have to show up on the day and enjoy everything." Jennifer frowned, surprised by the suggestion. "A surprise? But Anthony, it's my wedding. I always imagined the bride organizing everything, choosing the flowers, the dress, the details. I don't know if I can stay out of it." "I understand, my love," said Anthony, holding her hands firmly and looking directly into her eyes. "But think about how special it will be for you to walk into the church and see everything set up just as you've always dreamed, without having to worry about anything before. It's like giving you a gift, something done with all the care and love." She hesitated, her mind trying to process the idea. "I don't know, Anthony. What if something doesn't go as I want? And what about my dad? I want him to be involved too." "Your dad will be a part of this, Jennifer. I will speak with him personally and ask him to help with the costs. He will play a key role in making sure everything happens," explained Anthony with a reassuring expression. "But as for the details, trust me. You know how much I love you, and my mom is so excited to help. I guarantee it will be perfect." Jennifer tilted her head, pondering. And you really think it's the best? I mean, giving up something so important like that? Anthony interrupted her with a smile. I don't just think so, Jennifer. I'm sure. You will be amazed when you see everything ready, and it will be even more special because it will be a surprise. I just want to spare you the stress. Please trust me. Finally, she sighed and gave in, still a little uncertain, but touched by her fiancé's persistence. Okay, Anthony, if it's that important to you, I trust you. I just hope it really is as amazing as you say. It will be, Anthony assured her, kissing her on the forehead. And believe me, it will be the most unforgettable day of our lives. The following days brought Anthony the task of approaching Robert to discuss the financing of the ceremony. He arrived at his future father-in-law's house one afternoon and was greeted by Robert with his usual welcoming smile. Anthony, it's so good to see you. Come in, have a seat. Want some coffee? Robert offered while adjusting a chair in the modest kitchen. Thank you, Mr. Robert, Anthony replied, accepting the invitation and sitting down at the table. I came to talk about something very special. The wedding. Robert smiled, his eyes sparkling with pride. Ah, finally. My girl is getting married. Tell me, what do I need to do to help you? Mr. Robert, Anthony began, his tone serious. Jennifer and I want this day to be perfect. My mom will organize everything, but, well, we need your help to make it happen. There are a lot of costs involved, and your contribution would be crucial. Robert leaned slightly forward, interested. Of course, Anthony. I don't have much, but I'll do what I can. How much do you think it will take? Anthony, carefully choosing his words, replied, The exact details my mom is taking care of. But I know it involves flowers, decoration, buffet, things that will really make Jennifer's wedding stand out. She deserves something unforgettable. Robert nodded, his expression growing more serious. I want to do whatever it takes. Jennifer means everything to me. I just need to know how I can help. Don't worry, my mom and I will handle everything, Anthony said, smiling reassuringly. We'll keep you in the loop throughout the process, and I can assure you every penny will be well spent. As the days passed, Anthony's mother and other family members began visiting Robert frequently, presenting ideas and detailed lists. Robert, always with an approving smile, barely noticed the exorbitant costs being imposed on him. These imported chandeliers would give the ceremony a classic touch, said Anthony's mother, pointing to an image in a magazine. They're a bit expensive, but Jennifer will love them. If it's for her happiness, that's fine, Robert replied without hesitation. When the costs started to add up, Robert made difficult decisions. He sold Mary's jewelry, his most precious mementos from his late wife. Then he negotiated the car inherited from his father with a local buyer. Are you sure about this, Robert? This car has a long history with your family, the buyer asked, surprised. I'm sure, Robert said firmly. It's for Jennifer's wedding. I want her to have the best. Finally, Robert made the most painful decision: to sell the farm animals. The fields became silent without the sound of cattle, but he pressed on, determined. Each sacrifice seemed like a step toward his daughter's dream. He believed he was offering Jennifer an unforgettable day, even if it meant sacrificing almost everything he owned. The sun was shining brightly on that morning, illuminating every corner of the church where Jennifer and Anthony's wedding would take place. Jennifer was in a reserved room, being prepared for the big moment. She wore a beautiful white dress with lace details, while her makeup artist finished the final touches. Although she looked stunning, her heart was uneasy. It was a day that should be full of joy, but something troubled her. Anthony entered the room, adjusting his tie with calculated movements, as if every gesture was part of a planned spectacle. His eyes quickly scanned the room before settling on Jennifer, who was sitting in front of the mirror as the makeup artist finished touching up her eyes. He smiled, but there was something in his gaze that seemed to hint at a truth only he knew. He approached slowly, as if wanting to savor every second of the scene. "You look beautiful," he said, stopping behind her and lightly touching her shoulder. His voice was soft, almost syrupy. Jennifer raised her eyes to him through the reflection in the mirror and gave a hesitant smile. "Thank you, Anthony. Is everything ready out there?" "It's perfect," he replied, adjusting his tie again, a mischievous gleam in his eyes. He sat on the edge of the armchair next to her, crossing his legs with exaggerated nonchalance. "But there's something we need to talk about before you walk down the aisle." Jennifer turned to him, intrigued, her heart suddenly racing. "Is something wrong? Has my dad arrived?" Anthony paused, theatrically, leaning slightly forward, as if about to share an uncomfortable secret. "No, not yet. But Jennifer, there's something you need to know." You just say it already," she said, growing anxious, her eyes narrowing with worry. Anthony sighed, feigning regret, while fiddling with the end of his tie. "I didn't want you to know this today, but maybe it's better this way. Your dad, he didn't help with anything for the wedding." Jennifer blinked, confused. "What? How can that be? My dad has always been willing to support me." "Not this time," Anthony replied, leaning in closer as if wanting her to see the sincerity in his eyes. "My mom and I tried everything. We talked to him about the costs, explained how important this day was to you, and you know what he said?" He paused, savoring the impact of his words. "He said he thought it was all a waste, that it was too much luxury, and that you were exaggerating." Jennifer felt her blood run cold. "That can't be true. My dad, he would never say that." "But he did," insisted Anthony, now with a tone of feigned sorrow. "Maybe he's resentful because you're starting a new life away from him. My mum was so upset. We had to cover everything because he simply refused to contribute." Tears of indignation filled Jennifer's eyes, but she blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the emotion. "I don't understand. I can't believe he would do that to me." "I didn't want to believe it either," said Anthony, holding her hand with a false expression of compassion. "But, Jennifer, today is your day. Don't let this get to you. Focus on what matters, our union." Jennifer nodded slowly, but the hurt churned inside her. "Fine. But I'm going to talk to him." Moments later, Robert arrived at the church. He was carrying a small bouquet of flowers he had picked from his garden, his steps hesitant as he admired the luxurious decoration. His simple suit was immaculate, and his smile reflected pride and joy for this long-awaited moment. He walked toward the entrance when Jennifer appeared in the hallway, her expression hardened. "Dad, I need to talk to you now," she said, her voice sharp. Robert looked at her in surprise, but immediately stopped. "Of course, my daughter. What happened? Is everything okay?" Jennifer crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on his. "No, it's not. Anthony told me you didn't help with anything for the wedding, that you said it was unnecessary. Is that true?" Robert took a step back, shocked. Jennifer, that's not... Is it true or not?" she interrupted, her voice rising. "Jennifer, listen to me. Why, Dad?" she shouted, tears finally escaping. "Why would you do this to me? Why treat me like this on the most important day of my life?" Robert tried to hold her arm, but she pulled away. "Jennifer, please let me explain." "Explain what?" She cut him off, her face marked by anger. "That you're so selfish. You can't accept that your daughter is going to be happy without you. That you want to punish me for building my life." "Don't say that, Jennifer," he pleaded, his voice choked. "I would never do anything like that to hurt you." "Wouldn't you?" she scoffed, her eyes burning. "Because it looks like you've done exactly that. You refuse to help because you don't want me to be happy. You're a selfish and bitter man." Robert felt the words pierce his heart. He tried to speak again, but the force of emotion stole his voice. "Jennifer, please, leave," she screamed, pointing to the door. "Get out of here and don't come back. I don't want you ruining anything else." Robert stood still for a moment, motionless, before lowering his head. He turned and began to leave, his steps slow and heavy. Tears streamed down his face as he left the church, the sound of celebrations behind him making his pain even more intense. The wedding continued, but Jennifer felt a weight in her chest she couldn't ignore. After the ceremony, as she greeted the guests, she approached Benjamin, the event organizer. "Benjamin, everything was perfect," she said, forcing a smile. "Thank you for all the work." "I'm glad you liked it, Miss Jennifer," he responded, excited. "Your dad was very demanding in choosing the best of everything." Jennifer blinked, confused. "My dad? Are you sure you're talking about my dad?" "Of course," Benjamin replied, surprised. "He was at every meeting. He insisted on making sure everything was flawless." She was silent for a moment, trying to process. "Thank you, Benjamin," she said, before walking away. In the following days, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. Anthony's words on the day of the wedding echoed like an accusation. Her dad hadn't helped with anything, considered it all unnecessary luxury, maybe even resented the idea of seeing her start a new life away from him. But at the same time, Benjamin's words contradicted this version completely. According to him, Robert had been actively involved in every choice, ensuring that everything was flawless. As much as she wanted to believe what Anthony had said, something in the way Benjamin spoke about Robert seemed too sincere to ignore. She found herself reliving every moment. Anthony's accusation, the brief and strange conversation with her father at the church, and Benjamin's account. How could he have helped with the choices and not contributed financially, she thought, as doubts grew stronger. The pieces didn't fit, and what troubled her most was Anthony's behavior. He had been so emphatic about saying Robert didn't want to help, but what if he was hiding something? Jennifer started to notice that Benjamin's compliments had sparked a thread of suspicion that was now growing inside her. After a sleepless night, Jennifer decided she needed answers. She then decided to visit the wedding organization shop to better understand how everything had been conducted. When she entered the store, she was warmly greeted by the attendant, Brenda. "Miss Jennifer, it's so good to see you again. How is everything?" Brenda asked, excited. Jennifer tried to smile, but her expression was serious. "Hi, Brenda. Everything is fine, thank you. I wanted to talk to you about the wedding. Actually, about the details." "Sure, what do you want to know?" Brenda replied, eager. "I would like to access the complete records," said Jennifer, carefully choosing her words. "I want to keep everything as a keepsake, you know." It was such a special day. Brenda smiled and nodded. "Ah, I understand. Wait just a moment, I'll get everything for you." As Brenda looked for the documents, Jennifer surveyed the store, filled with bridal magazines, fabric samples, and flower catalogs. Her mind was buzzing with questions. When Brenda returned with a folder full of documents, she placed it on the counter and started flipping through it. "Here it is, Miss Jennifer. We've listed every item chosen and their corresponding values. The groom's family made all the payments, as you can see," Brenda said, pointing to the spreadsheets. Jennifer leaned in to look more closely. "All the payments?" she asked, furrowing her brow. "Yes," Brenda replied, not noticing the change in Jennifer's expression. "But I must say, your dad was very involved in the choices. He was very detailed. He knew exactly what he wanted. It was a very pleasant experience working with him." Jennifer felt her heart tighten. "My dad? Are you sure he was involved in the choices?" "Absolutely," Brenda replied, smiling. "He came regularly with the groom's family, always very polite and interested. He seemed to make sure everything was perfect for you." Jennifer stared at the papers, trying to hide the growing distrust. "But he didn't pay anything, right? Just helped with the choices." Brenda paused briefly, looking at Jennifer as if considering her response. "Well, the groom's family made all the payments, but to be honest, he was always present. I thought he was involved in everything." Jennifer felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Why would Robert help choose every detail if, according to Anthony, he thought all of this was unnecessary luxury? Why would his presence be so constant, but he hadn't contributed financially? None of this made sense. "Brenda, can I take a copy of these documents?" Jennifer asked with a serious expression. "Of course, Miss Jennifer. I'll prepare them for you," Brenda replied, heading to the copier. While she waited, Jennifer felt a whirlwind of emotions. If Anthony had told the truth, why would her dad be so involved? But if Anthony was lying, what would he gain from it? At the same time, thinking that Robert, her father, could truly have been so involved in the planning, left her with a lump in her throat. When Brenda returned with the copies, Jennifer thanked her, carefully placed the papers in her bag, and left the store. Outside, the fresh breeze touched her face, but she barely noticed. She walked toward the car, lost in thought. Suspicion was now a scream in her mind, and the only way to silence it was to confront Robert directly. "I need to know what really happened," she said to herself, her voice firm. Determined to get answers, she drove straight to her father's house with the documents in hand. Jennifer parked the car in front of her father's simple house, her heart pounding in her chest. The sight of the place, so familiar, now seemed laden with a tension she couldn't shake. Jennifer got out of the car, clutching her bag to her body, the documents weighing like a burden. She took a deep breath and walked to the door, hesitating before knocking. Robert quickly opened the door, as if he already knew she was coming. His face, marked by exhaustion and the hurt of recent days, lit up for a brief moment upon seeing her, but quickly turned to a look of concern. "Jennifer," he said, his voice soft and hesitant, "I didn't expect to see you so soon." "Dad, we need to talk," she replied firmly, but trying not to let her voice shake. "Of course, come in," Robert said, stepping aside for her to pass. The inside of the house was as simple as it had always been, but now Jennifer noticed the emptiness. The furniture seemed more sparse, and the absence of some familiar objects caught her attention. She sat at the kitchen table while Robert pulled up a chair to sit across from her. The silence between them was palpable, as if they both knew this conversation would bring difficult revelations. Finally, Jennifer opened her bag and placed the documents on the table. Robert looked at the papers with curiosity, but his expression soon shifted to concern when he saw Jennifer's face. She seemed to be carrying a mix of anger, hurt, and something else he couldn't identify. "Dad," she began, her voice trembling but firm. "I went to the store that organized the wedding. I saw the documents. They said you helped choose everything, but didn't pay for anything. Why? Why would you do that?" Robert's eyes widened in surprise at the accusation, and he opened his mouth to respond, but she continued before he could speak. "I need to know the truth. It doesn't make sense. Anthony said you didn't want to help, that you thought it was all unnecessary, but then why would you help with the choices? Why would you be so involved? None of this makes sense, Dad." Robert took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair as he did when he was nervous. His voice came out firm but laden with sorrow. "That's not true, Jennifer. I never said I thought the wedding was an exaggeration. On the contrary, I paid for everything." The words hit Jennifer like a punch. She froze, staring at her father as her mind struggled to process what he had just said. You paid for everything?" she repeated, her voice coming out as an incredulous whisper. Robert nodded, his tired eyes full of sincerity. "Yes, Jennifer, I paid. Every penny." "But this doesn't make sense," she exclaimed, her voice growing louder, almost desperate. "In the store, they said everything was paid for by Anthony's family, that you only helped with the choices. How is that possible?" Robert frowned, looking at the documents in confusion. He slowly shook his head, trying to piece together the puzzle. "I don't know why they said that. All I know is that they came to me with the amounts, showed me what was necessary, and I paid, and they gave me the receipts. I trusted that what they showed me was what you wanted, what would make your wedding perfect. Jennifer blinked rapidly, her eyes filled with tears. But you said you have the receipts, right? Where are they? Robert nodded, standing with difficulty and going to the same cabinet where he had fetched the papers before. He returned with the worn folder and placed it on the table, pushing it toward Jennifer. Here they are. Every payment I made, they gave me a receipt. They said everything was fine. Jennifer opened the folder with trembling hands, pulling out the papers one by one. Her eyes quickly scanned the receipts, recognizing the amounts, but something caught her attention. She picked up one receipt and compared it with the records from the store still in her bag. The numbers didn't match. "Wait," she murmured, her eyes darting back and forth between the documents. "These amounts, Dad, these amounts are outrageously higher than the ones at the store." "What do you mean?" Robert asked, leaning over the table to look at the papers. "Look here," Jennifer said, pointing to one of the papers. "In the store's record, the flowers cost this much, but the receipt you have here is more than triple." Robert fell silent, staring at the numbers with a shocked expression. I had no idea. They showed me the amounts. I trusted them. I just wanted everything to be perfect for you, Jennifer. I never imagined they could be cheating me." Jennifer continued looking at the papers, now with tears streaming down her face. Every item she checked showed the same discrepancy, exorbitant amounts on Robert's receipts, while the store records indicated much lower costs. "Dad," she said, her voice choked, "they were stealing from you. Anthony's family used you to get more money than was necessary." Robert slumped back in the chair, running his hands over his face, exhausted and devastated. "How could they do this? I trusted them. I sold everything to pay for this, Jennifer. I sold Mary's jewelry, my dad's car, even the farm animals, everything so you could have the best." Jennifer fell to her knees beside him, gripping his hands tightly. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I was so blind. I believed them. I believed Anthony and doubted you. I said horrible things. How could I have been so unfair?" Robert looked at her with sadness, but also with a touch of relief. "Jennifer, you were hurt. I know you just wanted to understand what was going on, but I would never do anything to hurt you. Everything I did was for you," she sobbed, hugging him tightly. "I'll fix this, Dad. I'll find out the whole truth and make sure you're compensated for everything you did for me. I won't let them get away with this." Robert stroked her hair, just like he used to when she was a child. "You don't have to do anything for me, Jennifer. I just want you to be happy." Jennifer, however, couldn't let this go. Determined to get justice, she gathered all the receipts and the store records and went straight to a lawyer. Upon presenting the evidence, he was surprised by how clear the facts were and immediately began legal proceedings. An investigation was launched, and the financial transactions of Anthony's family were meticulously analyzed. The evidence was undeniable. Exchanged messages, altered spreadsheets, and bank records confirmed that Anthony's family had manipulated Robert into inflating the wedding costs and diverting large sums of money. The scheme was complex, but left enough traces to incriminate them. Robert had trusted them in good faith, while they used that trust to enrich themselves at his expense. When confronted by authorities, Anthony and his mother initially denied any involvement, but faced with the evidence, they had no way to escape. Anthony's mother was identified as the mastermind of the scheme, orchestrating every detail to exploit Robert. She was sentenced to prison in a closed regime, while Anthony and other involved family members received house arrest for complicity. Part of Anthony's and his family's assets was confiscated to reimburse Robert, including properties and a bank account that fully covered the diverted amounts. With the recovered money, Robert began to reorganize his life. Although he had sold many precious items, including his father's car and the farm animals, he could now slowly rebuild what he had lost. More importantly, he felt that his relationship with Jennifer was stronger than ever. Jennifer, in turn, felt a mix of relief and regret. She dedicated herself to spending more time with Robert, helping him replant the garden, reorganize the house, and even repopulate the farm with some animals they bought together. Each gesture was a way of showing her father how important he was to her. "Dad," she said one afternoon while helping him carry hay bales, "there are no words to thank you for what you did for me. I was unfair, but I promise I'll never let anything separate us again." Robert smiled with a gleam in his eye that Jennifer hadn't seen in a long time. "What matters, my daughter, is that we're together now. The rest, we always find a way." Justice had been served, but for Jennifer, the greatest lesson was understanding that the true value of things wasn't in luxury or appearances, but in the genuine acts of love that supported her relationships. Despite everything he had lost, Robert felt richer than ever for having his daughter's affection and respect restored. And together, father and daughter, they began a new chapter, marked by unity and the certainty that nothing could ever separate them again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.